what would be the stages of an M&A transaction? And you already told us about the term sheet and scheme of arrangement here. But like basic, where do we start and where does it all end? Like a beginning to end sort of summary.
Well, I always believe that any deal, for that matter, doesn't start in a boardroom. It always starts in a cafe. I mean, you go to, say, a Taj in Mumbai, and you have a person sipping coffee, and that's where the deal starts. But
That's
I mean, jokes apart, sitting on an airport and you're sitting in a lounge, that's where the deal starts. But having said that, I mean, more formally, a non-binding term sheet with board resolution. We think board resolution. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible now. It went off for a second, but you are back. Yeah.
All right. So basically, what happens in this case, a typical seller will open up its data room, and it will say attract many bidders, and you do your due diligence. You enter into a non-binding term sheet. It gets more formal in the form of a formal term sheet, and of course, then you execute your formal documents such as shareholders agreement, business transfer agreement, or a scheme of arrangement. Now, if it's a scheme of arrangement, it will go through various other stages, such as it will require the approval of a national company law tribunal or regional directors, that is the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, income tax authorities, official liquidators, any sectoral authorities as well. Now, in case of a typical, when two competitors are getting merged or being acquired, you will require the permission of a Competition Commission of India, as we saw in the Vodafone Idea merger, if it's not a group company merger. So the Vodafone Idea company, Ultratech JP, Lafarge Nirma, all those kind of acquisitions which are big ticket sizes, and there are certain thresholds around it. So you typically require a Competition Commission approval. And then, of course, you require RBI permission if it's not under the automatic route. Say, for example, if there's no permission to give cash to a foreign buyer or foreign seller. So if it's any consideration in the form of cash, you require RBI permission. And if it's a listed company, of course, you require SEBI. I mean, there are general exemptions around it where you can take the benefit of it. So these are typically the stages where to consummate a transaction. So I mean, if I were to briefly put it, there's a pre-deal scenario, there's a deal scenario where you actually are executing the transaction, and there's a post-deal scenario. So pre-deal is usually informal, non-binding term sheets, due diligence, all those stuff, not much in public forum. Then you have a deal execution scenario, and then post-merger integration, where you integrate all the systems, teams, etc., etc.
Okay. So if you can just briefly define where would it really end? When would you say that okay, now the M&A transaction is complete? Of course, it will be a transfer of shares in the favor of the acquirer. But prior to that, like when would you? Is that a court order, or is that how you would say that okay, it's complete now?
Well, so let me just put it into different baskets. If it's a simple share transfer agreement or a business transfer agreement, the deal ends when you sign and execute that share transfer agreement. Now, of course, these agreements are not effective without any prior approval of the regulatory bodies. For example, if you have a SEBI approval required, you'll have to do that. Or if you have to give an open offer to acquire a listed company, then the deal ends when the open offer ends. Typically, in case of non-related parties, if there's an acquisition between two unrelated parties, you'll require the Competition Commission approval. So the statutory time frame is 210 days from the date of giving notice. But of course, they give a permission much earlier than that. So that is when the deal ends. In case of a scheme of arrangement, the deal ends when you get a court order, but not every time. So for example, I was actively a part of the team which handled the Kane Vedanta merger last year. So it recently got concluded on 28th March, before I left PwC. I mean, I left on 31st and it got concluded on 28th. Apart from the court order, we required a Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas ministry approval, which took some time. So it's not always the court order which gives you an approval, but of course there are sectoral regulations as well which the permission is required.